Did you know that men are far less likely to talk about depression, even though they experience it just as frequently as women? This silent battle affects millions, and yet it often goes unnoticed, undiagnosed, and untreated. It's not because men don't feel the weight of depression, they do. But societal norms and personal struggles make it incredibly difficult for them to open up. In this video, we'll explore the 10 core reasons why men struggle to talk about their depression. Drawing inspiration from the powerful works of Nobel Prize winner Kang, whose stories delve deeply into human suffering and silence, we'll uncover why men often choose to hide their emotional pain. Just as Kang's characters struggle with expressing their trauma, many men grapple with the same barriers when it comes to mental health. By understanding these reasons, we can begin to break the stigma and create a world where men feel safe discussing their struggles. Kang's work reminds us that silence can be deafening, but conversations like these help to heal. So let's explore these 10 reasons, inspired by Kang's profound insights, and open the door to a much-needed dialogue on men's mental health. Why do men keep their depression locked inside? What holds them back from seeking help? In this video, we'll dive into the top 10 reasons men struggle to talk about depression, drawing inspiration from Kang, Nobel Prize-winning author known for her piercing explorations of human emotions. Whether you're someone dealing with this yourself, or you want to understand the men in your life better, stick around. This could be the breakthrough you need. 1. Societal expectations of masculinity. We've all heard phrases like "man up" or "boys don't cry," but these aren't just throwaway sayings, they're deeply ingrained in how men are taught to behave. From a young age, boys are often conditioned to suppress their emotions, to be tough, to be the rock. This expectation of constant strength is what we call toxic masculinity. Society tells men that vulnerability equals weakness. The idea that being open about your feelings somehow makes you less of a man is harmful and outdated. Yet it still holds a strong grip on many men's minds. They're expected to be the providers, the protectors, the ones who always have it together. And when they don't, they feel ashamed, like they're failing not just themselves but everyone around them. This cultural narrative of self-reliance pushes men to stay silent, even when they're suffering the most. 2. Fear of judgment. One of the biggest barriers to men opening up about their mental health is fear of being judged, misunderstood, or seen as weak. In a world where strength is often defined by how well you can hide your pain, admitting to feeling overwhelmed or sad can feel like stepping into dangerous territory. Will people think less of me? Will they say I'm overreacting? This fear of judgment can be paralyzing. Men worry that their friends, family, or colleagues will see them differently. In some cases, they might even be concerned about professional consequences. The stigma surrounding mental health, especially for men, creates a toxic environment where opening up feels risky. Instead of seeking help, many men choose to suffer in silence, trapped by the fear of being labeled as fragile or broken. 3. Lack of emotional vocabulary. Here's the thing: many men simply don't know how to talk about what they're feeling. Emotional expression is a skill, and if you've never been taught how to describe your feelings, it's incredibly hard to articulate them. This lack of emotional vocabulary is often a byproduct of how men are raised. They're taught to be stoic, to bottle up their emotions, and over time they lose the ability to put words to their inner experiences. This isn't about men not having emotions, it's about not having the tools to express them. Without the language to describe what's going on, depression becomes this nameless, shapeless burden that's hard to even acknowledge, let alone talk about. It's like trying to describe a color you've never seen. Where do you even begin? 4. Cultural and familial influence. Cultural norms play a massive role in shaping how men approach their emotions. In many cultures, men are expected to be the pillars of strength for their families. Admitting vulnerability is seen as a failure to live up to this role. In some households, emotional expression is simply not encouraged. Fathers might pass down the same stoic, tough-it-out attitude they were taught, perpetuating a cycle of silence. This generational silence can make men feel like they're not allowed to speak about their mental health. If their fathers never showed vulnerability, why should they? It creates a barrier where emotional expression isn't just uncomfortable, it feels forbidden. For many men, Opening up about depression feels like breaking a family tradition they've been taught to respect. 5. Fear of burdening others. Another reason men stay quiet about their depression is the fear of being a burden. There's this overwhelming sense that if they open up, they'll be dumping their problems on others. This altruistic mindset tells them that their loved ones have enough to deal with, and adding their own struggles to the mix would only make things worse. Men are often wired to be fixers. They want to solve problems, not create them. So when they're the ones facing an issue, like depression, they internalize it rather than asking for help. It's not that they don't trust their friends or partners, it's that they don't want to add more weight to their shoulders. In reality, talking about it could be the exact thing that helps them heal, but the fear of burdening others keeps them locked in their own pain. 6. Unawareness of depression symptoms. Depression doesn't always look the same in men as it does in women. While sadness and hopelessness are common signs, men often experience depression through anger, irritability, or even physical symptoms like fatigue. Because these signs don't fit the typical depression mold, men may not even realize they're struggling with it. Instead of identifying their irritability or exhaustion as a mental health issue, they may chalk it up to stress, burnout, or just part of life. This lack of awareness means that by the time men realize they're depressed, the situation has often gotten worse. Without recognizing the signs early on, they miss the opportunity to seek help before things spiral. 7. Lack of support systems. Men often face a significant gap when it comes to emotional support systems. Unlike many women who tend to cultivate close, emotionally supportive friendships, men's friendships are often built around shared activities, hobbies, or interests. Whether it's watching sports, gaming, or working out together, these interactions tend to focus more on doing rather than talking. While these shared experiences can build camaraderie, they rarely provide a space for deep emotional discussions. Men might bond over these activities, but the conversations rarely delve into personal struggles, especially around something as deeply misunderstood and stigmatized as depression. This lack of emotional outlets can leave men feeling isolated even when surrounded by friends. They might have plenty of people they hang out with, but they don't feel like they can open up about what's really going on inside. The idea of vulnerability, of sharing their deepest pain, fears, or feelings of inadequacy feels too risky. They worry about being judged, misunderstood, or worse, dismissed. It's not that men don't value emotional connection, but often they've never had the space to practice vulnerability. In many cases, their male friendships haven't been built to support it. Moreover, societal norms have taught men that emotional self-sufficiency is a virtue. From a young age, boys often receive the message that they need to be tough and handle their problems alone. They might see their own fathers or male role models as emotionally reserved and learn to mimic that behavior. As a result, when they do face internal battles like depression, many men believe they have to shoulder the burden on their own. This reinforces the isolation, making it harder to reach out, even when they desperately need someone to talk to. Even if they do have close relationships with family or friends, many men still hesitate to open up. They fear they might appear weak or that their struggles will be met with awkwardness or indifference. Some may convince themselves that their pain is a burden, and it's better to keep it hidden rather than risk discomfort or rejection. Over time, this silence compounds, making depression feel even more suffocating. The internal monologue often shifts to a darker place: no one understands or no one would care, even if I tried to explain. Without an outlet, depression festers. The weight of unspoken feelings grows heavier, and the more isolated a man feels, the less likely he is to seek help. This emotional distance can also damage relationships. Friends and loved ones may sense that something is wrong but feel powerless to help because the person suffering isn't opening up. This creates a cycle of loneliness where men feel disconnected, and that disconnection fuels deeper emotional pain. Breaking out of this isolation requires courage and trust. It means challenging the ingrained belief that vulnerability is weakness and understanding that true strength lies in connection. Men need spaces, whether in friendships, family, or professional settings, where they can talk openly about their mental health without fear of judgment. It's through these conversations that healing begins, and they realize that they aren't alone in their struggles. 8. Workplace pressures. In many professions, there's an unspoken rule that you don't show weakness. Men who work in high-pressure environments, whether it's law enforcement, the military, or even corporate roles, often feel like admitting to mental health struggles could put their careers at risk. There's a fear that saying I'm depressed will be seen as a sign they can't handle the job. The pressure to maintain an image of being capable and strong can lead to men burying their emotions, even if it's at their own expense. They may push through, trying to keep up with the demands of work, all while their mental health deteriorates. The fear of being seen as less competent or worse, losing their job, keeps many men from reaching out for help when they need it most. 9. Fear of therapy. Therapy can be a scary concept for men, especially if it's been stigmatized or misunderstood in their community. Some men worry that therapy won't work for them, or they might see it as something that's only for weak people. The idea of sitting down and talking to a stranger about their emotions can feel foreign, uncomfortable, or even shameful. For others, there's a mistrust of mental health professionals. They might worry about being judged or feel like they won't be understood. This fear keeps them from trying therapy, even though it could be the key to their healing. The idea of therapy needs to be reframed not as a last resort but as a tool for growth and self-understanding, something that helps you get stronger, not weaker. 10. Harmful coping mechanisms. When men can't or won't talk about their depression, they often seek alternative ways to manage their emotions, methods that might seem helpful in the short term, but end up causing more harm than good. Alcohol and drug use are common avenues men might turn to, thinking that these substances will dull the pain or provide a momentary escape from their feelings. At first, it might feel like a relief, a way to take the edge off or numb the overwhelming emotions. However, over time, substance use only deepens the despair, adding addiction or dependency to the already existing depression. Overworking is another way men attempt to cope. For many, staying busy seems like a productive way to avoid confronting their feelings. By pouring all their energy into their jobs or side projects, they can momentarily push aside the heavy emotions they don't want to deal with. But while it may feel like they're achieving something, this constant busyness is just a distraction. It doesn't allow them the space to acknowledge or process their depression, and eventually, the exhaustion from overworking can compound their emotional distress. Other harmful coping mechanisms include excessive gaming, gambling, or seeking out risky behaviors, anything that provides a temporary dopamine hit to mask the underlying sadness. These escapist tendencies trap men in a cycle where they avoid addressing the root cause of their pain. The more they avoid it, the worse the depression gets, which in turn leads them to double down on these coping mechanisms. What makes these behaviors so damaging is that they don't solve the problem, they just cover it up for a little while. And when the effects of alcohol, overworking, or other distractions wear off, the feelings of depression often come back stronger, accompanied by guilt, shame, or a sense of hopelessness. It's crucial for men to recognize when they're falling into these harmful patterns. Acknowledging these behaviors for what they are, short-term fixes that lead to long-term suffering, is the first step toward change. Instead of numbing the pain, men should be encouraged to seek healthier ways to cope. This might mean talking to a friend, reaching out to a professional, or even just taking time to sit with their emotions rather than running from them. Facing depression head-on can be scary, but it's far healthier than using coping mechanisms that only prolong the suffering. By acknowledging their struggles and seeking support, men can break free from the cycle of harmful coping and begin to heal in a meaningful, lasting way. It's clear that men face unique challenges when it comes to talking about depression. But breaking the silence is the first step toward healing. We need to change the narrative around mental health, remove the stigma, and encourage men to open up without fear. If you're struggling, reach out to someone you trust. It doesn't have to be a therapist right away. Sometimes just talking to a friend can make all the difference.